everyone, and welcome to another Liverpool Transfer Talk show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. A lot of rumors circulating in the last 5 or 6 hours, so it's only right that we cover all of those news plus other transfer rumors that have been waving around the airways in the last few days. So we'll start with the first one, and it's some official news, which is, of course, very, very good to see, and that is the official signing of Milos Kerkez. So he is finally a Red. Some fans were very concerned yesterday, as we all thought he was going to be announced at some point on Wednesday, but that didn't happen. But you have to wait for these sort of things, and finally it happened earlier on today. My thoughts on the signing: I've watched this quite a few times in the last few weeks. Very, very pleased with the signing of Kerkez. I think he's a player that will give us a different dimension in this team. He's a player that's more than capable of overlapping, which is what you expect from your traditional fullback. But what separates him from the others is that he's very good in terms of inverting or underlapping in terms of fullback terms, and he's very effective in that area. So for me, he can attack inside or outside, and that would definitely present a difficult um, proposition to our opponents next season. So for me, fantastic signing. £40 million, not really a crazy fee. I know some fans were quite reserved about that amount of money being paid for a left back, but this is a modern day. We can't just assume that left backs are going to cost you 10, 15 million. Nuri is a Man City signing. They paid 36 million for him as well. So, it's just the going rate. I feel like we've got a player that is only 21, 22, I believe, and his ceiling is very, very high. I feel like he has a lot of room to grow. I watched a clip of him earlier today from his assist that he provided against Tottenham last season. That's the kind of level I'm expecting to see Perkins produce next season. So for me, he's a fantastic signing. We will have two very attack-minded fullbacks in our team, so it's going to be very interesting to know how we set up. But exciting times for us Liverpool fans. And I saw a video earlier today with him and his dad driving in Liverpool, playing Ale 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 in the car. So the dad is just as jubilant as Kerkez in regards to this move, and it's very positive to see because all the signs that we've made recently, the dads have been really really jubilant about their sons joining Liverpool. With Frimpong's dad, who's a Liverpool fan, and then Vertz's dad couldn't stop smiling when he wore the Liverpool shirt during the sort of the conference room when they were making the announcement, and of course taking the pictures of him signing the contract. So very very positive. It just shows the impact of Liverpool, and it also shows the parents are fully on board with regards to their sons joining the club as well. So exciting time ahead. One thing that I noticed from his interview is that he mentioned that he's looking forward to learning from Robertson, and the main reason why he's looking forward to playing or training with him is because he's played at the very highest level for a number of years. So we have to ponder the question: does that mean Robertson is staying? It's a bit unclear at this stage, but according to Fabrizio Romano, this is not the tweet. Let me pull out the real tweet. Um, so according to Fabrizio Romano, Atletico are closing in on a deal to sign Matteo Ruggeri as their new left wing back. Now, there are other candidates, but it seems to be like he's their number one target. So it looks like both clubs are currently in negotiations. So that puts Robertson in a bit of a difficult position because now it looks like that maybe the move to Atletico Madrid will not happen. So what do Liverpool do in this situation? Because I think originally we all would have expected Robertson to stay, and we were kind of all, not all of us, but I think most of us were on board in regards to Tsimikas being the backup fullback for Kerkez, because we do need an experienced head, I think, in that defensive line. But it could be back to plan A, I guess, where Robertson stays and Tsimikas may depart from the club. He has generated some interest. I think Leeds United were showing interest a few weeks ago, probably willing to pay around 12, 15 million pounds, which for me is a good return for Tsimikas. So at this stage, it appears to be that Robertson will be staying at Liverpool. But only time will tell. We might get some further developments in the coming weeks. Just going to go through some of the comments there. Kieran says, good evening. Big up yourself, Kieran. Thank you for your comment, and thank you for your kind words on my post yesterday. Really appreciate that. SRB or SI says, where could Diaz go to? The options for Diaz could be a number of clubs. So there were quite a few clubs interested in Diaz from Saudi. Al Hilal were one of them. Barcelona was another team I think that was interested in him. I think that's his dream move. He's been talking about it, or should I say, his dad's been talking about it over the last couple of years. But it doesn't look like that's going to be on the cards because they are on the verge of signing Nico Williams from Atletico Bilbao. So there aren't many options out there, I would say. But teams can generate interest very quickly. So if they know a player is available in the market, for example, if PSG were to sell Bacola, for example, maybe they see Diaz as a replacement. Bayern Munich are definitely in the market for a left winger, so Diaz could appeal to the German club as well. Don't think Real Madrid want to sign him, but there could be teams that may be interested in a player, maybe an Inter Milan or a Juventus, or I know Juventus have Kenan Yildiz, but maybe they want a bit more experience in that front line. So there will be options for him, but I think he needs to suit the player in terms of what his ambitions are, because he could take the easy route and move over to Saudi Arabia and claim a huge paycheck whilst he's there, or he might want to pursue another sort of stint at a European club and then make his decision to move over to Saudi maybe in the future. So we'll see. Only time will tell in regards to Diaz. On to the next rumor, and it is Ibrahima, aka Ibou Konate. Now, a couple of days ago, we were told that there's a possibility that Konate will not sign a new contract, but then he refuted those claims and said that all the speculation you're seeing on social media is fake news. But then today, there's a source, and I don't know how reliable they are, so please do take it with a pinch of salt. Um, the person goes by the name of Santiona, and he tweeted earlier on today suggesting that Konate has decided that he doesn't want to sign a new contract. So, word for word, in terms of his tweet, Ibrahima Konate has been offered to Real Madrid, PSG, and some clubs in 2026. Talks on new contract stalled, and French centre back is keen on a new challenge. Ibrahima Konate favours Real Madrid. Now, in regards to that tweet, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because the club wouldn't offer Konate to Real Madrid, PSG, and more clubs. That's not something we would do unless we were trying to sell him in this current window. Uh, it might be a breakdown in translation. I'm not too sure, but that doesn't make sense because the first priority for Liverpool would be to try and sign him on a new contract. And if that wasn't the case, or they got an indication that Konate isn't going to agree to a new contract, then the sale of Konate this month would make sense. I don't see this tweet having too much. Maybe it's just the way it's worded. I don't know. It doesn't connect well with me in regards to what's been presented here. But I do feel like you know we have to be a bit wary about the situation because Konate, you know, seems like such a nice guy, and you know you expect him to sign a new contract in the end because he's not only the best paycheck, let's be honest, in terms of football terms, of course, I'd be happy in terms of what he's earning, but he's earning 75k a week, which, in this market for a player of his ability should be earning a lot more. And that's where the discussion begins, or the stumbling block between his agents and the club. I don't know what the requirements are from Konate, but the current rumor is that Liverpool are willing to offer him 200k per week, which I think is a sufficient amount for Konate. It's probably the same range that Saliba is also earning as well. And for me, they're at the similar age, similar kind of status in terms of being top class defenders. Not quite world class, but very, very close in entering that bracket. So for me, if that is the terms that Liverpool are offering in terms of it being 200k a week, I think that should be a sufficient amount for Konate. I think he should agree terms to the contract presented. You know, I'm a little bit split because I would love Konate to say. I really would. I think he's a fantastic defender. I think that he's probably one of the best defenders in the league. But if the player is not showing any willingness to sign a new contract, then I feel like the club need to act fast and possibly sell him this summer. Which it sounds a bit crazy to say out loud, but I feel like we don't want to be in another situation where we've lost a player on a free, just like we did last year or last season, I should say, with Trent Alexander-Arnold. And of course, it's the same team that are in the mix again in terms of Real Madrid. So I really hope and pray that Konate signs a new contract. If I was to make a prediction, I actually do think he will sign a new contract, but you just can't help but feel wary about the interest from Real Madrid because this is their bread and butter in terms of acquiring players. They, whisper behind their ears and tell them, look, if you stay on board or if you run out your contract, we will sign you at the end, and then we will give you a huge sign-up fee along yourself in terms of the player and your agent. So everyone will be you know, happy and pleased about that sort of agreement. So, will that be enough to sway Konate? I hope not. I hope, he looks at the bigger picture and realizes that he's at a great club. He's a club that's going to be challenging for major honors for years to come. And he's going to play a big part of that. I feel like Arne Slot will probably communicate that with Konate. But, players are their own person and they will decide what's best for them. So we'll just have to wait and see. I would like to say he signs, and you know, I would love for it to be before this window closes because if it's not announced before the window closes, then it's going to be deja vu in terms of the whole Trent saga last year as well. Maybe not as you know publicized because of course Trent was a Scouser, and the English media always like to make small things out of like make and scope it into a big deal. But I think it's something Liverpool need to try and eradicate and make sure, if he is going to sign a contract, try and do it as soon as possible and try and do it before the window closes. Gives the player peace of mind. He can focus on the team and not have to worry about talking about contracts with the media and all that sort of stuff. So if he is going to sign, just get it sealed and confirm it to the world as soon as possible. So we'll see in terms of what happens with Konate. Um, Now, on to the next rumor, and that is Mark Gay. So, rumors are circulating in regards to Gay that he definitely wants a move to Liverpool, and apparently talks have been progressing with Liverpool and his camp. So, the big question is, can Liverpool agree terms with the player and also Crystal Palace? I don't think the player or agreeing terms with the player will be an issue. I think that should be quite routine. The club, I think Crystal Palace will try to milk it as much as possible. Whether they get what they desire, it remains to be seen. I think 35 to 40 million should be the right amount to sign Mark Gay. He's in his last year of his contract. Anything above that seems a bit inflated in my opinion. But for me, Gay is a very solid option. He's a good defender. He would have been my first choice. I think I'm basically view Mark Gay as a direct replacement for Kwanzaa. And I feel like that is a huge upgrade in our squad. You're getting an experienced defender who's going to cover for Van Dijk and Konate. And he's a leader. He's very good on the ball. And I feel like he's a player that can play in different roles, whether it's in a back three or in a back four. He can even play the DM, if required. So he definitely has something about him, and I think he'll be a solid option for us in the squad. So I really hope this move does happen in the coming weeks, and I think 35 to 40 million should be the amount that helps Liverpool acquire the player from Crystal Palace. So only time will tell in terms of if that's going to happen. Now, this is the big news from earlier on today. And I'm sure it's got a lot of us fans talking. So let me bring the tweet up that has definitely, spoiled everyone's evening, I guess, to some extent, or unless you want Diaz to go, then maybe not. The tweet says, exclusive, Luis Diaz and his entourage are upset with Liverpool's stance. They feel the club has gone back on their word once again with the player. something similar happened before with his contract renewal, and now with the possibility of a transfer. So this was tweeted by Pip Sierra. So I believe he was the one that revealed Luis Diaz's move to Liverpool all those years ago. So he's probably a very reliable source when it comes to Colombian footballers. I kind of see some truth in this as well because I do remember that there was talks that Liverpool wanted to give him a contract renewal 2 or 3 years ago, but then he picked up that injury that pretty much kept him out for large parts of that season. And I think the discussions or the negotiations pretty much went flat from there onwards. And it's the same this year around as well because he's just come off a fantastic season for Liverpool, and for me deserves to get a new contract and deserves to be given better terms or and improved terms in terms of what he's currently earning. But Liverpool haven't shown any indication that they want to offer him a new contract, and that's a concern for the player. And I don't think it's deserved, if I'm being brutally honest. But Liverpool, or should I say FSG, are looking at it completely differently, where they've assessed the player's profile in terms of him being 28, 29, giving him a new contract. It's not probably, from their point of view, the best thing to do for business. Van Dijk and Salah are probably a rare commodity, where they are players above the age of 30, but they have been given new contracts. So will Diaz be given that new contract? I would say he deserves it, to be fair. Unfortunately, I just don't see it happening. So Esther asked me earlier on in terms of where could he go. Saudi Arabia would be the most likely destination because they have shown interest in signing the player since January, and they're willing to splash the cash. So if Liverpool asked for 70, 80 million, I think that is something that is quite realistic and attainable for Liverpool. And of course, that money will be used very wisely to either find his replacement or use to cash in on a top tier striker. So it just depends, where Liverpool are. I personally would love to see Diaz stay for another season, and then we can kind of revisit the situation next year. I want Liverpool to have the strongest squad available in his upcoming season. So rather than selling Diaz, and signing a replacement that's not quite ready for the first team, for me that doesn't fit the bill. So I really hope that Liverpool can at least give him another season and maybe change their mind and give him a contract, even if it's a short-term contract. If age is the concern, then maybe give him a 2 year or 3 year extension to his current deal, and then it should be where Liverpool can look at the situation further down the line. But maybe they think we're not going to get big money for him in the future, and maybe the time is now to sell him and try and get as much cash as possible because Barcelona showed interest a few weeks ago, and they were only willing to pay up to 35 million, including add-ons, which is outrageous because that's not even the amount we paid for Diaz. We paid around 40, 45 for Diaz all those years ago. So let's see what happens to Diaz. I would like to see him stay, but I'm not sure if that's on the card. So we'll see what happens in terms of further developments of Diaz and his future at the club. Next player, Darwin Núñez. Shout out to Liverpool Transfer Room for this artwork. Um, According to rumours, it appears that Núñez has given the green light to move to Napoli, but Liverpool and Napoli are, still currently in negotiations in terms of agreeing a deal. The current rumor is that Napoli will be paying around 38 million in pounds plus 4 million in add-ons, so that adds up to 42 million in total. The big question is that good bit of business? For me, no. I think that's quite a low fee for Darwin Núñez, but we have to be realistic as well. I don't think there will be many clubs willing to pay that kind of price for Darwin Núñez because he hasn't been prolific in the last 2, 3 seasons. So his stock would have reduced, in my opinion. But in terms of the player and the club, I think it's a great fit. I think Napoli will sign a striker that will embody the spirit of their fan base, which is real passion and you know fans that love a player that really works hard for the team, and Nunes will do that. Nunes is a player that's aggressive. He's on the front foot, uh, wears his heart on the sleeve as well. So they would love that. So I think that's a match made in heaven in terms of the type of profile of a striker that they want in their squad. So it'll be interesting to see, if this materializes. I think we'll get some news in the coming days. I think maybe end of this week or possibly early next week, we'll get some official news or some sort of agreement between the two clubs that Nunes is set to move over to Serie A. I think in terms of him moving over there, his skill set will fit the style of play in the Italian league, where it's played at a bit more of a slower tempo, so it's not as fast paced as the Premier League. And with his raw speed, he'll be able to really exploit opposition with runs on the channels, and he would definitely cause chaos to the opposition. So for me, it's a good fit, and I do wish him the best. There's no sort of hard feelings or ill will to the player. For me, it just hasn't worked out, and I feel like these things happen in football. He's a talented player in his own right, but I just don't think he's Liverpool quality, and I don't think he's good enough to be a top tier striker in the Premier League. So elsewhere, I think he can definitely make a name for himself. So it remains to be seen, when this move happens. I think it's probably when rather than if. But I do think this will be the move that ends up happening in the coming days. But then we have to also ask the question. There's another striker in Napoli's books that isn't very much favoured due to personal reasons and other circumstances. So the question is, can Liverpool do a swap deal involving Darwin Núñez and Victor Osimhen? My opinion, I think that would be a fantastic deal for Liverpool. I think you've got a striker in Osimhen who is accomplished and established at eh, this sort of time of his career. He's 26, moving on to 27. So not, very young, but a player that has done it consistently for a number of years. And that's the type of striker I want in our squad. I want us to sign a prolific striker. I don't want us to have a striker that's going to be regarded as a project and we have to, wait and see until they fulfill their potential. I want us to sign a ready-made gunman in front of goal. Of course, the target is Alexander Isak, but if that deal wasn't able to be completed, then I think Isak would be a good option. Another player would be, of course, Julian Alvarez, but I don't think that's a realistic one. So, apart from those two strikers, I think Osimhen is third in that pecking order. So, let's see, if there's any truth to rumor, because apparently in January, when we were trying to sign a replacement for Nunes, I'm not sure if everyone remember, Nunes was close to moving over to Saudi in January, but we couldn't find the replacement, or we couldn't complete a deal for Osimhen. So that's why the move never materialized. But big question is, do Liverpool still hold interest in the striker? It's a bit up in the air. I'm not entirely sure. But if the proposal was presented in terms of doing a swap deal, I'd be all over it. I think he's got a release clause of £60 million, so maybe they'd want a bit of money on top, or we can basically offer Nunes and Chiesa and do a like for like swap deal for Osimhen, because the valuation would probably reach up to 60 million anyway. Um, but I feel like I'm talking FIFA career mode more than anything else right now, so I'm not sure if that's going to happen in the real world. But it is something to watch out for, because there's no indication where Osimhen will move. He certainly won't be staying at Napoli. Whether he returns to Galatasaray, I'm not sure if that's going to be feasible for them. A move to Saudi looked like it was going to be the next destination, but apparently talks have fallen through between the club and the player. So let's see what happens with Osimhen. But I do feel like, if Liverpool weren't able to get Isak or Alvarez, this should be the guy that they look towards as Darwin Núñez's replacement in the squad. Another player that's been linked again with Liverpool, and that is Viktor Gyokeres. Now, the Sporting Lisbon striker, of course, has been very prolific in the last 2-3 years. Is regarded as one of the most lethal finishers in Europe. But having said that, there doesn't seem to be a huge line um, to acquire his services, which is quite strange. For someone that scores so many goals, yes, it's the Portuguese league, but he's still hitting the back of the net on a consistent basis, and is definitely a natural finisher, or a finisher of a high level. So why aren't other clubs, pursuing it? Because there's a lot of teams in the Premier League that need a striker, the likes of Arsenal. Chelsea have signed the lap, but I think they would like to sign one more. For example, Manchester United needs a striker. Maybe Tottenham can add more fire to their lineup. So there's a lot of teams, especially in the Premier League, that would definitely want to sign a player of Gyokeres' quality. And the big question is, do I see any truth in this rumor? I actually don't see any truth into it. I have said previously, if Liverpool want to sign an established striker and Isak, Alvarez, and Osimhen weren't available, then for me, this is the player that's fourth in line in terms of my pecking order because he's established. He's done it for a couple of years on a consistent basis. He hasn't played Premier League football as such, but he has played English football. He was a striker at Coventry, not as prolific as he was, or should I say, is at Sporting Lisbon. But at least we know he's had some sort of taste of playing English football, and he should be ready to adapt to the Premier League lifestyle, in my opinion, or should I say, the Premier League style of playing. So for me, this would be the fourth player in line, but at this stage, I feel like Isak and Osimhen seem to be the ones that we should focus on if we can get one or the other. Um, and it'd be interesting to see where Gyökeres goes. If I was to make a prediction, I can see him joining Arsenal, but Arsenal taking a very long time to sign a striker. I'm not sure what's happening there. They're more, focused on signing centre backs and midfielders right now. Um, they love a centre back, don't they? They're linked with Valencia's centre back Mosquera, who's very highly regarded, but not the player they really need. They should be focused on finding a talisman for that team, but they're doing other things in the background, so we'll let them do what they're doing. But in terms of Gyökeres, could be a viable option for Liverpool, but I feel like we should maybe focus elsewhere and try and sign a player that really fits the bill. And for me, that is Alexander Isak. Now, the current rumor in regards to the Swedish striker is that Newcastle are planning to offer him a new contract by increasing his salary to 150k per week and making him the highest paid player at the club. But apparently, Isak has stalled on the talks and has informed Newcastle that he wishes to join Liverpool if possible. And Liverpool have shown some sort of indication that they are willing to spend big on signing the striker. So my thoughts on the rumor, I'm getting, a good feeling about it. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it just feels like from the player's point of view, it's Liverpool or nothing. So that's already a positive sign there. The big stumbling block will, of course, be the club and how much they want to part ways. I think Newcastle have changed their stance a little bit. At one point, they were saying he's not for sale at all. Now they'll say, if the if a suitable bid came in around that 150 region, we'd consider it. I don't think no one will pay 150. I don't think Liverpool will pay that much for Isak, despite the urgency to sign this prolific striker. I think Liverpool will try and negotiate and possibly get it down to 125/130 million pounds, including add-ons. And I think that should be enough to um, get the deal done because I do feel like, if the players made that that sort of message very clear to the club that he wants to leave and his desire is to join Liverpool, you don't really want to keep a player on who's not 100% committed to the cause. So for me, this is a dream signing. It really is. It will remain a dream signing until the window closes. Will it happen? I'm praying and hoping. It's just that I'm getting that sort of same vibes with the Verts deal where it felt like Bayern Munich was definitely going to get Verts, but all of a sudden we were told that it was Liverpool or nothing regarding Verts. So hopefully we can push that same narrative and get this gunman through the door as well. And imagine Verts and Isak with Salah on the right, Gakpo on the left, or Diaz even. That is a formidable front line. So yeah, right now we're dreaming, but hopefully, we can make it. Well, not we, but as in hopefully we can, you know, see it become a reality, and maybe we get a post like this on social media that would definitely break the internet. So let's see what happens in regards to Isak and Liverpool in the coming weeks. Just got a comment here from Double D. Big up Double D. He says, bring Gyokeres as Isak is unlikely. I think he's definitely someone in the mix, to be fair, Double D. For me, I would probably go Osimhen above Gyokeres, if I'm being honest with you. That would be my preference. But if Osimhen for some reason is not available or the club aren't, in line with the player or they would prefer to look at a different option, then Gyokeres for me has to be in the mix. He would be the one I would target before your Ekitikes and your Seskos and your João Pedros because those players are for me identified as more project players, and I want us to sign an accomplished and established striker this summer. So hopefully Liverpool can get that sort of signing very, very soon. And speaking of established strikers, we've got a player in our own ranks that could be moving on this summer. So according to rumours, Newcastle have shown interest in signing the striker, and apparently they placed a bid of 37 million just to kind of test the water to see where Liverpool stand in regards to valuation. Now, the question is, should Liverpool accept that kind of fee? And second part question is, should we sell Jota? Now, in terms of the fee, I think we can probably do a little bit better. If that is the opening bid and that is actually, there's some truth to it, we should be looking at 45, 50 million, in my opinion. For me, when he's fit and ready, he is one of the best finishers in the Premier League. So, 45, 50 million is not that crazy of an amount in this day and age. So Solanke went for how much? 50, 60 million. So I definitely rate Jota above him. So for me, I think that would be the valuation that Liverpool will want a club like Newcastle to meet. Now, the big question is, would I sell Jota? If we get an offer of that region, then 100%. I wouldn't force him through the exit door because, you know, I know fans will still have reservations in terms of his availability, but, we can try to manage his game a bit better and not rely upon him too much. But then again, I look at the squad and I'm thinking, look, if Diaz leaves and, we sign Isak, for example, who has a history of, picking up injuries here and there, we can't really have Jota as the backup striker because in my head, the backup striker should be available for most parts of the season. But if your backup striker is injury prone, then it kind of beats the purpose of having them all together. So maybe it's time for Liverpool and Jota to part ways. I think Newcastle would be a good fit for him. He will play Champions League football and he'll be part of a team or club that, is very well supported in Tyneside. So for me, it would be a good move for him. And if we can get 45, 50 million, I think it would be a good deal for Liverpool as well. And I think we can definitely find an adequate replacement for Jota and, use whatever money is left onto other areas of the pitch. So for me, I would accept that offer reluctantly because I do like Jota, I do rate him. But the last 2, 3 seasons, his availability has been a huge concern. And last year, to be fair, when he was available and when he did play, he looked to shallow himself. And I honestly believe the injuries that's he's endured in the last few years have taken its toll on his body. And I feel like, we're not seeing that same Jota, that lethal finisher from goal, the one that, has a great burst of speed on the ball. He's not that type of player anymore, unfortunately. So I think it might be time to part ways with Jota. But feel free to let me know in the comments what you think and what we should do with regards to Jota. Next player, got some more official news, and that is Nathaniel Phillips. Now, the player has finally been sold. He's been loaned out left, right, and centre. But in the end, he has been sold on a permanent basis to West Brom. But the big deal about this situation is that we've actually got some money for him. We've actually managed to attain 3 million from West Brom. So when credit is due, gotta give a shout out to the guy that is Richard Hughes. And funny enough, when I did my sport analysis show a couple of weeks ago, I did forecast Liverpool to get 3 million for Nathaniel Phillips, but maybe I was clutching. But in the end, it ended up being a reality, which is very, very positive. So, good bit of business for Liverpool to get a player that was pretty much surplus to requirements. But also for Nathaniel Phillips, he plays at a club that will be challenging for Premier League promotion next season. So wish him all the best and hopefully he does well at West Brom next season. Next player is Owen Beck. Now, the left back who's had a fantastic loan spell at Blackburn last season is in a situation where he's at a crossroad. What is his next move now? Because Liverpool want the player to sign a new contract, but not only that, they'll probably loan him out for another season before making a decision on him next season. I've always felt like Owen Beck could be used as a replacement for Robertson next year because Robertson has one more year remaining in his contract. So if he stays and he fulfills that last year of his contract, then you've got a player who has shown promise. He's been I think he was in the team of the season for Dundee when he played a couple of years ago, and he was, I think, one of the standout players for Blackburn last season, similar to when Bradley was at Bolton. He had that kind of impact at the Championship club. So the current sort of rumor is that there's a few clubs interested in him. You've got the likes of Rangers, Derby, and Wrexham that want to sign the left back on loan for next season. And so the big question is, what should Liverpool do? And which club should the player join if we wanted to loan him out? I think the club should keep him on for one more year. I'm not sure if his contract is expiring, but all I do know is that maybe another loan spell would be the right call for his development and to see if he's ready to compete for a first team place next season in terms of after 2026. Um, so I would definitely loan him out. I think that would be the smart thing to do. In terms of the clubs that he could possibly join, um, I wouldn't want to send him over to Rangers, to be honest with you. And that's not disrespect to the club because it's a huge club in Scotland. But I would like him to get accustomed to English football. I want him to play English football and see if he's ready to make that jump up to the Premier League. If he goes over to a Scottish league, we're not really going to get a true indication, if he's ready to play for Liverpool because he was at Dundee United, did very well there, but it's a different league in comparison to him playing for a Championship side, for example. So for me, I wouldn't be in favour of a move to Rangers. Derby is a decent club. I think I'd probably favour the Wrexham move a bit more. Um, Funny enough, he was actually born in Wrexham. And I don't know if people know he's Ian Rush's nephew as well. So you've got that Welsh connection there. And I feel like Wrexham are a team who've just been promoted to the Championship. They're on the up. So why not join a team like that? And I feel like it'll mean a bit more to him if he helps him get promoted to the Premier League. And look, let's just paint the scenario there. If he goes over to Wrexham, gets him promoted to the Premier League, do believe you're going to see more Netflix specials in regarding Wrexham. But at the same time, it increases his stock. And if we were to sell him to Wrexham or to any other team, it would definitely add a bit more stock or valuation to the player. So I think the smart thing to do will be to loan him out to Wrexham, see how he does next season. And look, if you feel like maybe he's ready to compete for a spot, bring him back to Liverpool. If not, we sell him on and try and make a profit on him as well. So that would be how I would conduct the business in regards to Owen Beck next season. Now, next player is Harvey Davis. Now, it was revealed earlier today that the goalkeeper has signed a new contract with Liverpool, but he's also being loaned out to Crawley Town for the rest of the season. Um, I was quite surprised by this official news, to be honest with you, because I was under the impression that he would remain at the club as a number three goalkeeper because we've course, we've loaned out Yaros to Ajax, so that's already a vacant spot. Then there isn't any other goalkeeper that can fill in that void. We're not going to sign an experienced keeper just to, be third choice as well. So it would have made more sense to keep him on board, because he's a player that also fits that homegrown quota, which we're quite low in numbers, to be honest with you. So maybe that would have been the smart thing to do. But maybe Liverpool have other ideas. Maybe they're thinking a loan move would help in terms of his development, and maybe we can analyze his situation next year. But I think maybe it would have just made sense to have him as a third choice keeper. But who knows? Because right now we've got Alisson, Mamadashvili, and I don't even know who our third choice keeper is because it was Yaros, but he's not there anymore. And Harvey Davis has gone over to Crawley Town. So either one of the young goalkeepers get promoted, or we sign someone, which I highly doubt, to be honest with you. So let's see what happens in regards um, to Harvey Davis. Just got a comment here from Oz and Kabak. Big up yourself. He says, "Yo, Ozzy, could you foresee a situation where Chiesa, Lucho, and Darwin all left this summer?" You can't rule it out, to be honest with you. The Chiesa one, I think, seems very, very likely that he will leave. If I was to give you a percentage, I see it being 90%. I think it's quite high. Lucho, a bit lower, probably a 60% chance that he leaves, I think. And Darwin, I feel like it's 90% again. I think it's pretty much certain that he will part ways. But then the club needs to be a bit more smart in terms of what we're going to do in order to replace these players, because on paper that will remain as we'll have Gakpo, Salah, and Jota. Harvey Elliott, but I think Harvey Elliott will also leave. But maybe, after his amazing performances for England under 21, maybe we might change our mind. I don't think that will happen because Arne Slot seems to be quite strong-minded with his decision making. I think if he's made the decision to sell Harvey Elliott, or he thinks he's not quite, good enough to be in the team or to play for the club, then we have to respect the manager's decision. But that's only three players, so that's a lot of work for us to do. I don't think it'll be wise to get rid of all three. Um, But I can also see us trying to sign a striker and possibly getting a left winger. So you end up having five attackers there, and then you've got the likes of Trent Doherty and Rio and Gomoa, on the sides, filling in, during cup games, or if we need an extra body in the squad, then those players can definitely occupy that. So yeah, I can see this happening. I think the Luis Diaz one is the one I have a question mark on, even though we've got, news and some sort of speculation that the player and the camp aren't happy with Liverpool's stance, um, and aren't happy with the way Liverpool have dealt with Luis Diaz situation, where they haven't presented him with a good contract or any contract to that notion. So it's going to be interesting because with Diaz, I think he's probably not getting the move he wants. I think he wanted to go to Barcelona, and because that move's not happening, he might not want to go over to Saudi Arabia because he feels like he's probably got a lot to give, especially after winning the Premier League. I think he's got a taste for more trophies and success with his team. So out of the three, I hope we keep Lucho. I wouldn't even mind if Chiesa stayed, to be honest with you. I would love to see Chiesa stay for another season. I feel like it will provide adequate quality and depth in our squad. But I just don't think Slot rates the player, and I don't think he favours him at all. So that's why I feel like Chiesa will move back to Italy. Um, but if it was my choice, I'd keep both Chiesa and Lucho, and then sign a striker that is a like-for-like replacement for Darwin Núñez. So whether that happens or not, only time will tell. On to the next rumor, and that is Stefan Bajcetic. So the last couple of days, we've heard that the club are willing to listen to offers for the midfielder, and the club value Stefan Bajcetic for around 25 to 30 million. So the big question is, should Liverpool sell? In my opinion, I know this is a player that certainly splits the fan base. I would sell him for that amount of money. I think that is an offer too good to refuse, in my opinion. I feel like there's a player that is very talented. I just don't know if he's the right fit for the Premier League. And I feel like his skill set is better suited for La Liga in this scenario. So I feel like it will make logical sense to sell him to a club in La Liga. And after his great loan spell, that he's definitely generated interest there. They've given him nicknames like the next Busquets and all that sort of stuff. So if he's getting rave reviews in Spain, then it might make sense for him to move over there, and we can reap the rewards by selling him for that amount of money, because that is a decent amount, 25, 30 million for a player that hasn't really been involved in the team for the last couple of years. Of course, he made his breakthrough with Jurgen Klopp, um, but I feel like he was just a player that stood out amongst a bad bunch. We had Fabinho and Henderson and Milner, the legs were going, so it didn't look like you know we had any energy in that midfield. So he stood out in that situation there. But I feel like his development hasn't quite gone to plan. Of course, unfortunately, he's picked up quite a few injuries over the time as well. As we're speaking, he's currently injured right now. So I feel like a move to La Liga would make perfect sense for the player and for Liverpool as well. We can get some decent money for him and use that to sign another DM. Maybe the DM is not on the cards right now, but if we were able to get um, that kind of amount of money from this sale, then the plans might change. We might try to get a player that we'll maybe planning on getting next summer rather than this summer. So I think that would be a smart decision in my point of view. And also we've got a player in Connor who I feel like would provide adequate quality or cover to our squad. He won't be in the lineup or even on the bench. I think he'll be like fifth or sixth choice, probably sixth choice, in my opinion. And especially if Bashir was to leave, I'd expect us to find a replacement right away. And then McConnell, around the fringes of the team and being involved in the cup game, I feel like he has, the right quality to do well. I think he's a player that can certainly progress going forward. So I would be all on board to give McConnell more of an opportunity than Bajtic, but feel free to let me know what you guys think. I know this opinion will not um, go well with a lot of fans, but that's just how I see it right now. Let's talk about Malik Fofana. So before we actually talk about the player, let's talk about his club and their situation because unfortunately Lyon have been relegated to League Two or League Two, if you want to pronounce it in the French accent, due to their financial issues. The club are currently in huge debt, which is around 500 million euros. Um, so two scenarios here. Liverpool can maybe try and target some of the best players, because Lyon will need to try and raise the funds with some quick fire sales. And from an FSG point of view, maybe this is a club that they can acquire and add to their portfolio because that is one of the reasons why Michael Edwards was hired in the first place. And I don't think you're going to get a bigger club like Lyon in this kind of situation where they need the funds and they're pretty much a sleeping giant in French football, in my opinion. So Lyon would be a fantastic club that they can acquire. But in terms of footballing terms, what should Liverpool do? Should Liverpool target some of their best players? One of the players that we've been strongly linked without this news breaking is Malik Fofana. Now, the left winger has had a good season for the French side. He's played 41 times, 11 goals, 6 assists. Whenever I've seen him play, or the compilations I've seen him more so recently, he looks like a very talented player, very lively on the ball, um, great dribbling ability, can shoot as well, but it's his ability to drive the ball and pick out the right pass at the right time. He's definitely a talent. He's still quite raw. He still needs to work on certain parts of his game and be a bit more efficient in that sort of final third and produce that end product on a more regular basis. I do feel like his goals and assists could definitely improve, um, especially if he also join Liverpool, where he'll be playing around better players, respectively. Um, I think this would be a smart signing as well because he shouldn't cost too much, even before the whole, situation of Lyon getting relegated. I think they valued him around 25, 30 million. So maybe we can get him for slightly less. And he's a player that would cover left wing, can play right wing as well, and can even play up top if required. So, I would probably earmark him. It's kind of like the whole Gay situation as well, where on paper we're thinking it's a Kwanzaa replacement, and it should be a direct Kwanzaa replacement, but he could be replacing Konate because we don't know what his future holds. It's the same with Malik Fofana in this scenario. If he was the guy that we're going to sign, you'd assume he's replacing Chiesa in the squad, but he could be replacing Luis Diaz, who is also, um, you know, not completely, on board in terms of staying at the club next season. So it's going to be interesting. I think Malik Fofana would be a great addition to our team. Some fans may not want this type of signing because he's a young player, and maybe if he comes into the club, he hinders or stops the development or the progression for one of our youngsters, which is Rio Ngamoa. Being Malik Fofana, he can play right wing, so it's not just that he's one dimensional in that regards. But I want Liverpool to sign the best players available. So, with Rio Ngamoa, don't get me wrong, looks like a very special talent, but we've got to be patient with him as well. Just because he's made a couple of cameos doesn't mean he's ready made for the first team this coming season. I feel like he's going to establish himself playing for the under 23s, but he will get involved in the cup games this season. And then next season onwards, we can assess him a bit further. Is he ready to be a squad player or challenge for a spot in the left wing position? Only time will tell. But I think Liverpool need to be smart and try and sign a player to come into the squad right now. If Chiesa and Luis Diaz were to be sold, then I might be getting a bit overboard. But I like to sign a left winger and a right winger to replace them, plus a striker. So for me, that would be the way to do it, because if you're selling Chiesa, you've pretty much lost a backup to Salah, and I would like us to find a Salah successor. So a player that I really like is Monaco's Akliuche. For me, a fantastic talent, really special. Strongly linked to a move to Newcastle and Bayer Leverkusen at the minute. So he could be a player on the move. Even PSG are in the rumblings to try and sign him as well. So very talented player. And for the left wing position, it's interesting because Malik Fofana would fit that young profile that we would probably want to try and sign. But if we're losing Luis Diaz and we want to sign his replacement, I want a bit more of a accomplished name. I want someone like Abakola, dream signing. I know, but let me say it out loud. And there are other players available. Your Rafael Leaz. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, but a player that I really like and I really rate. So I like us to sign a player of that caliber who can play left wing, but can also play up top if required. So it's going to be interesting. But if Liverpool wanted to sign a young profile who is a forward that can play in multiple positions, I think Malik Fofana definitely fits the bill, and I think he's at the right development the development stage to move to a club like Liverpool, because he won't be regarded as first choice and he won't be pressured to be the guy right away. He can bide his time, and when he's ready, then he will be involved in the first team mix. So he's a player that we can definitely be a bit more patient with and see how he impacts the team. But otherwise, I feel like he would be a smart signing. And if we can get him from a cut price as well, it only makes more sense for us to go ahead and do that. And the final rumor today is George's Mikutatsu. So this is in relation to the breaking news yesterday regarding Lyon, who unfortunately have been relegated to League Two. So he's a player that I've earmarked as maybe a potential addition to our squad, maybe even a potential replacement for Jota, because I wouldn't sign Mikudase as our number 9, for example, but in terms of how he plays, he's quite similar to Jota in terms of build, and stylistically, he's a very aggressive, you know, very much a front foot sort of player. He can play on the left wing, which Jota can do as well. Has a decent um, output as well. Last season, he played 47 times, 17 goals, 11 assists. So that's 28 GA in 47 games. So I don't think that's a bad tally at all. I remember watching him in the Euros for Georgia. That's where I came across him. And I was aware of him before, but I really saw him in that competition and thought, you know what? He's a decent player. He could definitely um, be a valuable member of any squad. He's very impactful. Even if he's come off the bench, he can definitely cause havoc. So he would be a smart signing to have, as a backup for whoever the number 9 is going to be at Liverpool. We're praying it's Isak, but we can't say out loud until it's official. So he would be the adequate quality, in my opinion. And I don't think it would cost too much, maybe 20 million, around that kind of range. So definitely a player that we should definitely try and sign if it's a possibility. He's already generated interest in the past couple of days. You've got the likes of Tottenham and Roma currently linked with the player, so he's not going to be short suited in my opinion. He's definitely going to interest a lot of clubs this window. So if Liverpool can try and get him over the line before the others do, I think it'd be a smart bit of business. But only time will tell in terms of if Miko is a genuine interest of Liverpool. So we'll wait and see what happens. But that is it for today, guys. That's the last rumor. Thank you so much for tuning, everyone. Thank you to Kieran. Thank you to Asa. Thank you to Double D. And thank you to Oz and Kabak for your engagement. Appreciate your time as always, guys. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Just to give you guys some context, so we've just hit 500 subscribers. So thank you to everyone for showing your support. It doesn't go unnoticed. We really, really appreciate it. And because we've hit that milestone, we've actually enabled the channel to provide memberships now. So with our memberships, we'll be able to present exclusive content for you guys, plus additional perks like discount on merch, and you're able to send super chats as well. So feel free to support the channel in that way. And with regards to membership, I've made a promise that whenever we have a new member to the channel, I will be donating £1 per member as well to charity. So that's something I would like to do from now on. So in terms of content, it will be the same type of content. My content is not going to reduce just because I've got membership. That will still remain as it is. It's just that we'll have some exclusive content for the members that just want to kind of go that extra mile to show the channel some support. So yeah, feel free to get involved. The link is available in our bio, but also pin it in the live chat after the show as well if you'd like to join. And yeah, lots of content coming your way. We might have some watch alongs this weekend, but I will confirm with you guys tomorrow. So that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning as always. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.